The 5th of March, 1979, dawned like any other late winter morning until a sharp, authoritative knock echoed from the front door of a simple, single-story home. The two men standing on the porch, dressed in conservative suits that seemed out of place in the quiet neighborhood, were agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Their presence marked an intrusion into the peaceful rhythm of Arlington Heights, Illinois. This was a classic American suburb, a patchwork of well-kept ranch houses and manicured lawns nestled comfortably northwest of Chicago's urban sprawl. Here, life moved at a different, more deliberate pace. In this placid community, the gravest concerns of the day were typically of a local and personal nature. The most pressing topic of conversation might be the weather, rising gas prices, or, more than anything, the perennial hope that this would finally be the year for the Chicago Cubs baseball team. But the two federal agents were not there to discuss sports or make a routine inquiry. They hadn't come to serve a warrant or to deliver bad news. Their purpose was far more unusual, a direct consequence of a perplexing and urgent phone call that had been placed just a few days earlier, on a Friday night. The call had come from a husband and wife, their voices a mixture of bewilderment and apprehension. They spoke of their son, a boy of only 13 years, who had made a discovery so improbable, so utterly fantastic, that it strained the very limits of credibility. A discovery they hesitated to even articulate over the phone. What they claimed was this: if their son's analysis was correct, he had just uncovered evidence of a clandestine Soviet intelligence operation of staggering sophistication. A spy network functioning right under the nose of American authorities, a silent threat embedded in the fabric of everyday life. The boy's incredible finding, the object that had shattered the suburban tranquility, was a fully operational, hidden cipher. Its hiding place was not a secret government facility or a locked safe, but something far more mundane and ingenious: the pages of the latest Sears, Roebuck and Company mail-order catalog. This was no ordinary publication. This hefty volume, a Bible of American consumer goods, was a familiar sight, delivered by the millions to mailboxes across the nation. It was a staple on living room tables, a fixture in households from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific shore. The fallout from this single discovery would be immense. In the months that followed, the investigation would result in the arrests of at least 10 individuals swept up in the operation's wake. A clandestine communications channel, operating in plain sight for years, was about to be completely dismantled and exposed to the world. More profoundly, it would force a complete re-evaluation of how American counterintelligence perceived the very nature of secret messages and covert exchanges. The established rules of spycraft were about to be rewritten. The boy at the center of this extraordinary event was named Michael Hartley. To truly grasp the magnitude of his finding, one must first understand the boy himself. It is also crucial to comprehend the world as it existed in the spring of 1979. By then, the Cold War had been a defining global reality for over 3 decades, a long, drawn-out confrontation. While the world had stepped back from the brink of nuclear annihilation seen during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the shadow war of espionage between the United States and the Soviet Union had not paused for a moment. The game of spies was as intense and active as ever. The KGB and the CIA continued their relentless dance, deploying agents deep within each other's territories, including their respective capital cities. At the time, America's own intelligence community was in turmoil. It was still grappling with the aftershocks of scandalous revelations brought to light just a few years prior by the Church Committee hearings. This public exposure of domestic surveillance programs had fostered a deep-seated atmosphere of paranoia. A pervasive sense of mistrust had permeated the national consciousness, seeping into American culture. Against this backdrop, the Soviets had already been caught running at least 3 significant espionage networks on U.S. soil during the decade. American counterintelligence professionals harbored no illusions. They were acutely aware that for every network they managed to expose, others certainly remained hidden, operating undetected in the shadows. Michael Hartley's family was the picture of suburban contentment. He lived with his parents, Gordon and Patricia, and his younger sister, Rachel. Their home was in a neighborhood where front doors were often unlocked and a sense of shared community was the norm. Kids played outside until the warm glow of streetlights signaled the end of the day. Gordon Hartley was an electrical engineer, applying his sharp, logical mind at Motorola's local Arlington Heights facility. Patricia, a substitute teacher at the middle school Michael attended, was deeply integrated into the fabric of the community, a familiar and trusted face among the local families. At that very middle school, Michael was an enigma. His teachers and peers recognized his quiet nature and his profound intelligence, but there was an intangible difference about him that they struggled to define. After all, the year was 1979, an era with a limited vocabulary for describing neurological variants. The official diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder would not appear in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for another year. For most Americans, the concept was entirely alien, a clinical term that would only gain widespread cultural recognition with the release of the film Rain Man nearly a decade later, in 1988. But his parents knew their son operated on a different wavelength. His development had been asynchronous. He had spoken his first full sentences relatively late, around the age of 4. Yet, astonishingly, by the time he was 6, he was already reading and comprehending texts at a high school proficiency level. The unwritten rules of social engagement were a constant struggle. Direct eye contact was uncomfortable, and the art of small talk, with its subtle cues and unstated meanings, was a language he could not seem to master. Loud noises or unexpected breaks in his routine could easily lead to him feeling overwhelmed. His mind, however, possessed an incredible capacity for deep, sustained focus. This led to a series of intense, almost all-consuming interests that could captivate him for months or even years at a time. His latest obsession, the one that had taken hold the previous summer, was the world of patterns. This was not a casual interest. He was drawn specifically to numerical patterns and the intricate, logical beauty of codes and ciphers. This profound passion was ignited by a book his father brought home from the local library. The book was The Codebreakers, by David Kahn, a formidable 1,200-page historical account of cryptography. A typical teenager might have glanced at its dense pages and quickly cast it aside. Michael was different. He devoured the entire volume, reading it meticulously from cover to cover, not just once, but 3 times, each reading deepening his understanding and fueling his curiosity for the subject. This book opened a door to a new world. Michael began a systematic exploration, checking out every available text on codes and cryptography from the Arlington Heights Library. He immersed himself in the mechanics of substitution ciphers, where letters are simply swapped for others, and the more complex transposition ciphers, which rearrange the order of letters. He studied the theoretical perfection of the one-time pad, the electromechanical complexity of the German Enigma machine, and the brilliant simplicity of the Navajo code talkers. He delved into historical examples, from Julius Caesar's cipher to the famous Zimmermann telegram that altered the course of World War I. His theoretical knowledge soon demanded practical application. He filled countless notebooks with his own unique encryption systems. He would spend hours creating elaborate ciphers for messages as simple as noting that he had fed the dog or that it was raining outside. The secrecy was not the point, the beauty was in the process. For Michael, it was about the mathematical elegance of transforming plain information into something hidden and then, through logic, revealing it once more. His parents viewed his hobby as harmless, a charming manifestation of his unique mind. They knew that when Michael became interested in something, he pursued it with an intensity that was both impressive and, frankly, exhausting. Patricia would later tell investigators that she sometimes worried about his social future. She wondered if he would ever make friends easily or navigate the spontaneous, emotionally driven world of adult interactions. But one thing she never had to worry about was his intellect. Michael was, by every measure, exceptionally bright. His teachers would certainly agree. His 8th-grade math teacher, Elena Kowalski, reported to the FBI that Michael had essentially checked out of her algebra class by October. Over the summer, he had independently taught himself the fundamentals of calculus, rendering the standard curriculum a tedious exercise in repetition. While his peers struggled with basic formulas, Michael would sit in the back of the room, engrossed in advanced, college-level math textbooks that he had sourced from the public library. His mind was simply operating on a different plane than those around him. The Sears catalog arrived in Michael's life just as it did in millions of others, unceremoniously, through the mail slot. The spring-summer 1979 edition landed at the Hartley home in early February, a 1,400-page behemoth weighing over 2 pounds. Its glossy pages were a vibrant tapestry of American consumer culture, offering everything from washing machines to wedding rings, power tools to patio furniture. It was a cultural touchstone, a tradition that had started back in 1888 and had become a fixture in nearly every household in the country. For most, it was simply a tool for shopping, a source of daydreams and wish lists. For Michael Hartley, however, it was about to become the key to a hidden world. The Sears catalog made its way into Michael's world in the same unremarkable fashion it did for tens of millions of other Americans. It arrived in the mail. The spring-summer 1979 edition appeared at the Hartley residence during the first week of February, a colossal 1,400-page tome weighing over 2 pounds. Its glossy pages were a universe of consumer goods, showcasing everything from washing machines and wedding rings to power tools and patio furniture, from boys' jeans to fishing rods. This catalog was more than just a book, it was a slice of American life, as ingrained in the culture as baseball and apple pie. It was an institution dating back to 1888, a publication that reached nearly every home in the country. For the vast majority of people, it served as a simple shopping guide, a convenient way to browse and purchase items from the comfort of their own homes. For Michael Hartley, it was about to become something entirely different, a document holding a secret far beyond the realm of commerce. The pattern revealed itself to him on February 11, 1979. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the Hartley family had recently come home from church. Michael was on the living room floor, the catalog spread open before him, a typical sight. His attention was focused on the automotive section, on pages filled with technical data for car batteries and motor oil. It was there that something caught his eye. Certain product descriptions felt out of place. They weren't factually incorrect, but they were oddly constructed, phrased in a way that disrupted the consistent, professional tone of the rest of the text. To a casual reader, it would be an invisible flaw, easily dismissed as a minor editorial oversight or a simple printing mistake. But Michael's mind was not built to dismiss such things. To him, an inconsistency in a system was like a discordant note in a perfectly tuned symphony, it was a puzzle that demanded to be solved. He immediately began a methodical search, turning through the catalog page by page, his eyes scanning every line of text. He soon began to find more of these subtly off phrases. These anomalies appeared intermittently, perhaps once every 40 or 50 pages. They were always cleverly buried within dense paragraphs of technical specifications, the very sections most consumers would only skim. In a fresh composition notebook, he began to chronicle every instance, meticulously recording the page number, the product category, and the specific item number for each unusual phrase he found. The task was painstaking and repetitive, a process that would have driven most teenagers to distraction. Yet for Michael, it was a calming, methodical ritual of searching and documenting. By the end of that first day, his list contained 17 entries. Within a week, the number had grown to 43. The phrases themselves appeared benign, tested under extreme northern conditions, available in regional markets only, recommended for industrial applications. It was the kind of dry, technical jargon scattered throughout the catalog. But Michael knew they deviated from the established grammatical and logical norms present everywhere else in the book. On February 18, precisely 1 week after his initial discovery, Michael decided to act on a hypothesis. His mind drifted back to a section in The Codebreakers about number stations, mysterious shortwave broadcasts of seemingly random numbers, widely believed to be coded instructions for spies. These stations had been known since World War I, yet no government had ever admitted to operating them. Michael wondered, could the Sears catalog be a similar system? A message hidden not in radio waves, but on paper, delivered to millions? He theorized the phrases were a key, designed to be read only by someone who knew the secret. He began with the most basic cryptographic methods, techniques used for centuries. He tried taking the first letter of each of the 43 unusual phrases, writing them down in sequence. The result was a meaningless string of characters. He then tried the last letter of each phrase. Again, nothing. He tried different intervals, every other phrase, every third, but each attempt led to a dead end. Days turned into weeks. Michael filled page after page with failed calculations. His schoolwork, once pristine, began to suffer. He was completely consumed by what he now called the catalog problem. Most people would have abandoned the effort, concluding they were chasing shadows, seeing patterns where none existed. But for Michael, once a pattern was detected, the possibility of it being meaningless was almost unthinkable. His mother would later recall him coming home from school and disappearing into his room for hours, sometimes skipping dinner, entirely lost in his work. He was so engrossed, he often didn't even hear her calling. The solution came to him late one night, on March 2nd. Lying in bed, he replayed every failed attempt in his mind. He had been assuming the message was encoded within the words of the unusual phrases themselves. But then a new thought struck him, a radical shift in perspective. What if the text wasn't the message at all? What if the phrases were merely markers, designed to point to something else? He sprang out of bed and turned on his desk lamp, the catalog and his notebook spread before him. He focused on a single entry, the jumper cables on page 487, with item number 369427. What if the numbers were the true key? He wrote down the numbers associated with each phrase, the page, and the item number. He tried adding them, subtracting them, searching for primes. Nothing. Then he remembered another detail from his reading, book codes. A system where a series of numbers refers to a specific page, line, and character in a common text. The Sears catalog was the perfect key for such a system. Millions of identical copies were in circulation, making it untraceable. The sender and receiver would simply need the same edition. This had to be it. He took his first entry, page 127, item number 84 to 6234. He turned to page 84, counted down 62 lines, and then counted 34 characters in. The letter was M. He wrote it down. His heart raced as he tried the second entry, page 316, item number 52 to 8915. He flipped to page 52, counted 89 lines down, and found the 15th character. It was the letter T. He continued this process, his excitement growing with each new letter, MTSUNDAY. He stared at the sequence for a moment, then the realization hit him. It wasn't MT Sunday, it was an abbreviation, Meet Sunday. Working frantically, he decoded the remaining phrases. When he was finished, he had a complete, coherent message. Meet Sunday 1800 Grant Park Bench 47 Red Scarf confirm the usual channel package ready. For the first time in his weeks-long obsession, a chill of genuine fear ran down his spine. This was no game. He had uncovered a real spy communication. A secret meeting was scheduled to take place in Grant Park in Chicago. Someone would be there, wearing a red scarf, waiting for a package. He went downstairs to find his parents. His voice, filled with an uncharacteristic urgency, made them turn from the television immediately. "I need to show you something." Back in his room, Michael calmly walked them through his entire journey of discovery. Gordon, with his engineer's mind, was skeptical at first. He meticulously checked his son's logic, cross-referencing the notebook with the catalog. But the method was flawless. The pattern was real. Patricia's immediate question was a practical one: what should they do? After nearly an hour of discussion, weighing the strange possibilities, Gordon Hartley made the decision. They had to call the FBI. Late on that Friday night, he found the number for the Chicago field office and dialed, hoping the duty officer on the other end would believe that a 13-year-old boy had just cracked a Soviet spy ring. Agent Kovac departed with the catalog and notebooks, leaving the Hartley family to ponder the incredible implications of their son's discovery. Back at the FBI's Chicago field office, what began as a skeptical inquiry quickly escalated into a full-blown counterintelligence operation. This was precisely the kind of threat that kept American intelligence agencies awake at night. The traditional tools of the trade, microdots, invisible ink, and dead drops, had become increasingly risky and detectable. The Soviets desperately needed a new, cleaner method. A widely distributed, completely innocuous mass-market publication was the perfect solution. It was a communication system that was both untraceable and ubiquitous, hiding in plain sight in millions of American homes. Operation Catalog, as the FBI internally named it, was now a top priority. The Bureau's top cryptanalysts quickly confirmed that the boys' decoding method was not only correct, but brilliant. Their investigation expanded, and agents began combing through past editions of the catalog, searching for the same telltale patterns of oddly worded phrases. They found them. Coded messages were present in every major catalog published for the previous 2 years. The communications network was larger and had been active for longer than they initially feared, with meeting locations referenced not only in Chicago, but also in Milwaukee, Detroit, and Cleveland. The investigation then turned to the source. The FBI requested from Sears a complete list of every employee with access to the catalog's production process, a list that contained over 300 names. Their search eventually zeroed in on a single individual, a 41-year-old copywriter named Alexei Pitishin. Pitishin was a naturalized American citizen, born in the Soviet Union, who had immigrated in 1962. His employment history was unremarkable, and his references had been clean. But a deeper dive by the FBI uncovered a critical detail he had omitted from his immigration papers: a 3-year stint in Soviet military intelligence. The FBI placed Pitishin under intense surveillance. An undercover agent was inserted into the catalog division, tasked with observing his every move. She reported that Pitishin often worked late, making what he called minor corrections from a handwritten list he kept locked in his desk. On April 18, 1979, the FBI made its move. In a series of coordinated pre-dawn raids, agents arrested Pitishin at his home and apprehended 7 other suspected members of the spy ring across the Midwest. The timing was synchronized to prevent any one suspect from warning the others. The search of Pitishin's home yielded irrefutable proof: a one-time pad, cipher keys, a Soviet passport bearing his birth name, Dmitry Kavrin, and most damningly, a list of categories for the next Sears catalog, marked with notes in Russian for the placement of future coded messages. Faced with this mountain of evidence, Alexei Pitishin was convicted on 4 counts of espionage in November 1979 and sentenced to 35 years in prison. The other members of the ring received sentences ranging from 10 to 25 years. Pitishin was never part of any prisoner exchange and died in federal prison in 1997. To protect him from potential retribution and the glare of publicity, Michael Hartley was never called to testify. His role in uncovering one of the most significant counterintelligence cases of the late Cold War remained a closely guarded secret for many years. Life for the Hartley family returned to a new kind of normal, punctuated by occasional visits from agents who had follow-up questions or sought Michael's unique insight on other patterns. The quiet, awkward student went back to his math problems, his secret known only to his family and the FBI. Michael Hartley graduated from high school, went on to study mathematics at MIT, earned his Ph.D., and built a distinguished career in the very fields that had once been his childhood obsession, cryptography and computer security, eventually working on classified projects for a defense contractor. The Sears Big Book catalog, a cultural icon, ceased publication in 1993, a victim of changing markets and the dawn of the digital age. At its zenith, it was perhaps the most widely circulated single document in the United States, reaching 40 million homes. In all those years, how many millions of people held that catalog in their hands and saw nothing but products for sale? Michael Hartley was the only one who saw the truth. The one person whose unique mind could detect the subtle anomalies and decode the secrets hidden in plain sight.